I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Colziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to That Sounds Terrifying. We're joined today by a very special guest, and I'm very excited. And you should be too. And maybe have like a little alcohol on hand and some shots because we're going to be saying a name quite a
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, welcome back, everybody. It is super awesome to have our next guest, our second guest, but one of our number one fans, right, Ashley? Welcome
That's
to the
right.
show, right? We talked a little bit about how this show got started in the first episode, but we really wanted to kind of get the full experience, the full Ashley, as to how this whole thing started. And I'll just set up the scene real quick. We're all in an improv group together. And we usually meet out before we're practicing. And I think this was even a week where we weren't actually going to practice. We were just meeting up with Ashley, and we got to talking. And Ashley, why don't you just tell it from your from the words from your mouth to our ears, what the heck happened that day?
So we're okay. This is very like, let me set the scene some more. Everything is just a calm, normal night at a bar, having a few drinks. People are playing trivia. There's been normal conversation about day-to-day life. And I swear to you, what it was truly like was out of nowhere. Jess just goes, sometimes I talk to dead people. And when I look just a tad surprised because I wasn't ready. Like that's not, the dinner custom that I am accustomed to. And she's like, I do. So get over it.
I get one exactly like that, but continue.
Yes.
And so then I feel like from there it just expanded. Like there were just quite frankly terrifying stories from both of you. And I feel like I did a lot of like nodding and smiling, which resulted in you both thinking that I was like,
terrified,
be your friend again. But really I felt like I didn't have anything to contribute on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, we felt, or I can't speak for Jess, but I felt that we were terrifying you to the point where like, okay, you're gonna like do one of those Peter Griffin things where you're just slowly moving away from the tour, that you're gone.
Why isn't Ashley an improv anymore?
Yeah. Well, I'm okay. So like that's what actually happened is we were talking about it was like a big day for me because my house cleaner and I were having a conversation that day. So I was still like kind of like freaked out a bit that day, like not freaked out, but like high on this energy of something that had just happened. And so like what happened was I gave my house cleaner a reading and I didn't mean to. It was a mediumship reading. There was somebody with her. There were a lot of somebodies with her. And like, I was just getting all this information. And I gave her this reading from friends who had passed that she had to hear from. There were messages to be told. And that doesn't happen to me all that much. Like that was just so random. And so like when we were like having that conversation, like we were at normal dinner doing normal dinner things and like fighting against the trivia, but we were like, we don't want to play trivia. We just want to talk. And then we were talking about something and I was like, I had something really weird happen to me. And then I said, yes, get over it. Like this is who I am. Which surprises me sometimes, like, cause I wasn't expecting that. And I don't go around like being like, let me talk to your dead, like it's never like, it's not who I am. And I don't do that. And so it was just like this random, she asked me like if she had somebody around her, and like it just like came and flooded at me. So that's where that came from. It wasn't just like I talk to dead people. You and you can bleep that out if you want.
Okay, well, listeners, there's two versions of the story.
3 if you include me, because then I started spiraling out of the way and talking about all sorts of different things. So one of the things that has been happening in our episodes, Ashley, and you've been listening as we go along, but the last episode I actually asked you off air if you had listened to it, and you said not yet. So we have something called the Ashley count, and that's the number of times that Ashley is mentioned in the episodes, and we definitely needed to include it. And then we're like, you know what, we need to bring Ashley on the show. In fact, I think it was Jess's idea. Like, we got to bring Ashley on the show so we can kind of, hear the stories and like, solidify the Ashley count.
So I just want to be clear. There's a drinking game named after me.
Now there is, I guess. Yeah, we just created that
like
2 seconds ago.
I'm like an iconic influencer right now. I'm so excited.
Yep.
Well, we mentioned it on the last episode, Nick.
Yeah.
We said take a shot every time we say Ashley.
Take
a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when we really solidified the drinking game. So Ashley. Maybe switch to beer at this point. You're gonna get real wasted.
And maybe I don't remember because I already had too many.
But maybe now that Ashley's been on the show, we just never speak of her again.
That would be kind of funny and sad.
But
that would be funny.
She'll ghost us. We'll ghost her. She'll be the ghost of the episode. The ghost of Ashley.
The ghost of Ashley. Yeah. Like we could even she shall not be named. So
it's a whole other drinking game.
Yeah. So totally. So getting kind of back into sort of the flow of the episode here, we decided to kind of take some of the stories that I had mentioned, which were we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about dead people, like Jess said, hearing and talking to dead people, and ghosts and paranormal and all that other stuff. And then we kind of got into the realm of aliens and other things that were happening. So I have a couple quick little things that I did bring up to Ashley and Jess, and I don't think I brought up on the show yet, but when and this happens frequently, not all the time, but when I was younger, I remember one time I was walking back home from a friend's house. It was a couple blocks. We live in a very nice neighborhood, nothing to really be creepy or scary about, right? But as I'm walking home, we have these street lights above me, and I walked under a street light and the light went out, and I'm like, okay, that was kind of weird. And I walk down the road and I get to the next street light, get under it, the light goes out. And it happened 3 times. And by that point, I'm like halfway home. I can actually see my house from where I am, and I just start running. But that was like a scary moment for me, and I definitely brought that up during our table conversation. And I'm interested to hear, if you remember what you guys said to me after that, or what you think about that.
I don't remember what I said about that. I'm sure I found it to be troubling.
Something's wrong with Nick.
I don't remember what I said, but my first reaction right now, because I remember the story, is that like people who have like a lot of energy around them can affect like, streetlights, because everything's energy, as I've said a million times on this podcast at this point, and we've only had 5 episodes. But everything's energy. So if you were like high energy at that point in your life, if you're a teenager, like they have a lot of energy, you can affect electrical things around you. I do have a question though. When you were running, were they going out too? Because that's kind of funny. Like it's funny to visualize, right? Like
no, it happened 3 times, and then I booked it. And honestly, there was one more light between me and home, and that's like right outside our home and on the big tall poles, and it sticks out. And like, and I'm pretty sure it didn't go out, but at that point I wasn't like looking back or checking. I was just like, I'm getting to home, so
yeah.
So I don't think so, but yeah, so that was one of the little tales that I was kind of sharing in like, I think I blurted out every experience I ever had at that conversation. The other one, which I'm still trying to find the photo for, we were actually talking a little bit before the episode about how I have photos for this episode, and they were all excited because they're like, is it this photo? And I don't yet, but I'm gonna try to find it, and if I do, I'm posting it. So I have had in my life some back trouble from hockey, getting hit and things like that, and it's been kind of a nagging thing going on. And I got hurt again a couple years ago, and my doctor ordered an MRI because they just didn't see anything on the X-ray. So I go in, I get the MRI done. The technician is like taking pictures, like they normally do. And they're not really supposed to, tell you or try to interpret, anything, right? But he put me on the table, he took all the pictures, and then he kind of like said, hold on a second, get back on the table. And he wanted to run them again. And he ran them again. And then he finally just come back out and he said, hey, I think he said, when you had back surgery, like what did they put in your back? And I'm like, I've never had back surgery. He's like, oh, well, that's weird. It's like, looks like there's metal in your back. And he's like, can you think of any reason you would have metal in your back? And I kind of just blurted out, joking around, saying, oh, maybe it was when I was abducted by aliens or something. So apparently I have metal in my back, and I don't know what it's from. And maybe, maybe it was an imaging thing, because later on he said, well, maybe it's just something in the table. But that was another story I remember sharing with you both, and Ashley reacting to. So
that one freaks me out, and I don't love the table explanation, because I feel like then why hasn't he seen it on every other person who's been on that table?
Right. Exactly. But her reaction at the table was just a smile and nod.
Yeah. Yep. Ashley's like, and not the kind of like, go on. It's like, no. How do I get out of here?
Maybe she took a bite of her pretzel that we were eating, but that was it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Because I feel like it very quickly like turned into a support group. Like it was like everyone sharing stories, and I'm like, I don't know what to contribute.
Yeah.
But are we getting into it today, Nick? Where is Ashley going to share her story that she was able to contribute after this happened?
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now, Ashley. We
Wonderful.
We want to hear your story.
Which story are we talking about?
Well, because you weren't able to share that day, but then when you went home, you thought of some things, and then things happened to you.
Oh, well, this is very true. So Nick shares his story about the lights, and then he makes this joke about like how he has this ghost Esmeralda who follows him around. So I get home, like this is not a typical thing that happens to me, but like in my house, like this light flashes on and off, and I'm like, that's weird. And then I go to my parents' house, and I had told my brother about this conversation, and I was watching TV with him, and a light like flashed in my parents' house, and then a little bit later it flashed again. And so then we're sitting there on the couch. They have like a guest bathroom downstairs in like their family room, and so there's a sink, and behind it is my brother's electric toothbrush, and all of a sudden we hear this crazy clattering, and it has just completely like, I don't know, flown up into the air and fallen into the sink. And it's not broken open. The batteries are not exploded. The way it's stuck in there, there's no way it should have moved. So we both found it very freaky. And on the heels of all of this, my brother said, you better tell Nick that now Esmeralda's stuck on you.
Oh, we got in your head, Ashley.
You did.
But the toothbrush, like, we got into the toothbrush. The ghost is in the toothbrush.
Well, we've had a cleaning ghost on the show.
That's right.
So why not a toothbrush? Dental care,
hygienist. Ghost.
Well, yeah, there you go. Well, and my house cleaner, the one who I gave the message to that started all of this, she had the lights flickering that day too. So that was the whole reason that I gave her the reading, was because the lights were flickering everywhere she was going, and she was like, help me, what's happening? So
the answer is her toothbrush.
It's a toothbrush. You need to brush your teeth. And now I'm a dentist.
Yeah. Jess, she's so many different things.
I do
Realtor,
so many things.
podcast host, dentist.
TikToker. Famous TikToker.
Yep. Or infamous.
Not infamous.
Yeah.
No, we're not famous yet, but we will be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anything else that's happened to you, Ashley? I felt like you had one more, maybe sort of fun story to tell.
Well, I mean, there was the time you asked me about my alien encounter. I can share that.
That would be great.
Please. Yes.
Now I will say, maybe your listeners aren't going to be terrified by this. But I was terrified, like horrifically terrified. So I was maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10, and my family had gone to Disney. Happiest place on earth. Or so I thought.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we went on this ride that was called Alien Encounter. And I remember there were all these signs up about, like, you know, this isn't good for little children. And I was like, whatever, we're fine. I can handle it. My little brother was with me. My mom and my dad were with me. So we go in, and like, from what I remember, everybody's in this big, like, round room. And it's one of those rides where, like, you don't really, like, move, but they're, like, tilting the seats up and down. So you're harnessed in, right? Which I feel like is important, because I definitely felt like I could not go anywhere during this experience. Mm-hmm. So then in the center of the room, there's, like, this horrific, grotesque alien in a tube that comes up and, like, I don't know, starts talking about wanting to escape. And really at that point, things were going fine. Like, I was like, all right, I can handle this. And then the alien decides he's going to abduct an audience member. And he picks my mother. And at this point, I just remember being right on the verge of, like, old enough to know that it was fake, but young enough that I didn't like how real it felt. And I remember, like, in my head going through, like, it's not real, but what if they even take her to a different room? I don't want them taking my mom away. Like, and I just remember, like, going over and over this and, like, not being able to move. My poor mom is sitting next to me, and she's, like, laughing and laughing. I think because she, like, knows I'm freaked out, and she's trying to get me to calm down. And then thankfully, I don't remember how it all ended. I mean, it felt like it was an 8-hour ride of horror. But then we left, and I just remember, like, we walk out, and my brother and I are both, like, pale white, shaking. I'm crying. Like, it was not a Disney moment. Nothing magical happened in Alien Encounter that day. So Disney people, if you're listening, good job switching it over to Lilo and Stitch. So much better.
Yeah, they don't abduct people anymore on that ride.
They don't. From what I remember now, like, he makes funny noises and, like, eats Cheetos or something.
Yeah. My favorite part of that story is your mom laughing at you. I'm sorry. But, like, as a mother, I know that I would be, like, hysterically laughing too, because, like, oh, this kid's, like, freaking out, but everything's fine and I'm not going anywhere. You know, like, you as an adult, you know, I mean, if my kid's crying, that's a different story, but like,
I didn't cry till after, like, in the ride, I just was, like, shaking, very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, everyone has their own terrifying experience. We've talked about that before. People are afraid of clowns. You're just afraid of Disney. In one particular Disney ride.
One particular Disney.
So.
Yeah, and potentially your friends now.
Yeah.
Only 2 of them.
These friends. These friends.
2 specific people. You
have to actually include Jessica C in that as well, because she's also a little spectacular.
She is. She definitely could be part of your support group.
Oh, for sure. Our crew for sure.
Yep, for sure.
I love it. So Nick,
Yeah.
you have some truly terrifying alien stories, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, things that I feel are a little bit more down the lines of actual alien type things that sort of happen to me and my family members. But you know, again, I kind of voiced that I'm sort of skeptical about all of this. I know that like I think I shared on the show that my most terrifying thing is aliens. Like I don't know exactly why, but I think it has something to do with like feel like paranormal ghosts and demons and all that stuff. Like I feel like there's a certain like sort of set of rules around them that like you can control or fix or help. But if like aliens are coming down and taking you away and performing experiments on you, everything I've like sort of seen is like you cannot prevent that, you know. So I think that that might be part of the reason why. So I do have like two story. I have a couple more, but I have two that I kind of picked out from childhood that I was going to share, and then we're going to go into another person's personal account that actually inspired the movie Fire in the Sky. It's a Travis Walton Experience, so we'll actually tell a story from someone else's point of view that is pretty documented and you know has been told that it happened, but also has a great deal of skepticism surrounding it. But I'll tell you my two sort of quick stories that I encountered in childhood first. And so I had a sleepover one night. It was just me and another friend. And it was right around the time that I was moving my room downstairs in our house. We had, a 3-bedroom home. I had two brothers, and they were sharing the smallest room, and it was time to move them into something bigger to give them room, right? So I volunteered to go downstairs to have this space that was, sort of half finished, half just like truly basement. And after I had moved most of my stuff down there, I invited my friend over, and we were hanging out doing whatever, playing video games, things like that. It got to be really late, and probably about the third or fourth time that either my father had come down physically to say, hey, go to freaking bed, or even pounding on the floor, which also happens sometimes, to like say, hey, shut up and go to bed. I gotta get up at 5 a.m. So we had been playing this new Star Trek game, which isn't scary at all, but may have put the thought of aliens and things like that in my head. But the strange thing was, like, we turned the light off, and like it was a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden we saw this weird greenish rotating kind of light coming through the window very brightly, and we're like freaking out because like we didn't know what it was. Like it just made no sense to us, any kind of light. My backyard is fenced in. There's nothing that can get back there. We do have like a cul-de-sac in the background, but like you can't see it. There's trees and all this others, but this was like a very bright light circling, in the back. So I got up and like went over to the wall to turn on the light switch. I turned on the light switch. The light would not go on. And as I'm saying this, like, as I'm doing this, my friend's like, I'm like, what do we do? What do we do? And we just bolted upstairs and then went into my brother's room. I think I actually almost stepped on him on his bed to kind of like look out the second story window, and there was nothing there. So that was the first story.
That's freakish.
Yeah. The only thing like in advance, like, well, what do you guys think? I know Jess is struggling with lights right now.
You're like, trying to turn the light on and it's not turning back on. And I'm like, you're like, I'm trying to turn the light on. I'm trying to press the switch. And I'm like, I'm trying to do the same thing and it's not.
I don't know. I kept getting distracted. Like I was like, Jess is having an alien encounter.
So sorry. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what just happened.
It's my stupid superpower. Of course I have a dumb one. I can turn people's lights on and off.
Turn the lights off. God damn it, Nick. Just hold on. There we go.
There.
Is it on? Is it on?
Let there be light.
But then it keeps turning.
I think it's funny. I think it's great. We got to keep it in here.
No,
You'll love it.
Being haunted. I don't know what's happening.
I think it's perfect. Everyone's gonna think we make this stuff up. That's the thing. Like everyone's gonna be like, yeah, Jess has just turned her lights on and off while Nick's speaking,
trying to like, just like my light kept going. He's like, and then I turn the light off and the light goes off. And I'm like, what is happening? Here are my hands.
Yeah, for sure.
Meanwhile, I was like, production's getting fancy. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man. So
they've got visuals now.
SOS.
Forget the stupid soundboards that Nick throws in there. They got lighting effects. I sort of rationalized later on in life thinking that maybe like an ambulance or something came through, because the one part of the downstairs, like my dad was one of those like energy efficient kind of people that like put plastic over the windows during the winter, and it was getting cold. So in my head, maybe it refracted the lights a little bit, so they were brighter, but like it still sort of didn't make much sense. But that was the only rational thing I could think of. Or like
green, because ambulances are red and white. Like you see red, it wouldn't be green.
Yeah, that's what my mind went.
Yeah,
there's no emergency service that has a green light, is there?
Not that I can
there's
think
blue.
of.
There's blue for volunteer firefighters. There's, I mean, like, what kind of green was it?
There's like, okay, wait, there's like amber lights. Did you have anything like maybe it was mixing with something in the room?
Maybe. It was like a yellow green, you know.
And was it like whoom, 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 or was it like, you know?
It was not pulsating.
I hope people are watching.
It was not, yeah.
I really enjoyed that part.
It wasn't pulsating. It was definitely kind of like almost like a lighthouse, like rotating and flickering. Would you say
it was constant? Like a constant speed?
Yeah, because that's what I think it freaked us out the most, is like, what the heck is going on? Like if it was just like a car turning, you know what I mean? Like out of a parking lot, or like the driveway, there really is no parking lot back there. And it, like, you know how like it'll go and the light will go up and then it'll come back down and then it'll be gone, right? This was like they were doing donuts, but you couldn't hear the donuts, you know, kind of a thing. So,
and there was nothing there.
There was nothing there when we got upstairs. It took us probably 30 seconds to get up there and jump on my brother to look out the window. But yeah, that happened. So that was kind of freaky to me. And then the other personal story I'll share is a family member shared with me kind of something that would terrify the crap out of me, because like when I was a kid, and my kids love this story because they love their stuffies when they were growing up and everything. So when I was a kid, I used to stack all my stuffed animals up. I was like in a bunk bed, and I would stack them up to the top of the bottom part of the top bunk, so you couldn't really see out. So my logic behind that was, if there was any entities or things coming at me, they were going to get the animals first. You know? And I was cocooned in, and my daughters like think that that's so mean, but they love those. When I tell stories about things and like that to them, they're like, you know, that's so mean that you'd want your stuffies to get attacked first. I'm like, all right, from everyone for themselves, man. And so this family member was telling me a story about how he was sleeping and he woke up and he couldn't move. And he looked at the bottom of the bed and he saw like an alien like figure standing, pointing kind of at him. And so he did the whole like, I can't move. And he tried to scream. He couldn't scream. And finally he was like audibly able to get something out. And the thing was getting closer and closer until it was like kind of on him. And then finally he sort of like woke up. He said it was like a totally different scene to his wife, like shaking him. You're having a nightmare. But it was, he was kind of like shaking, telling me the story. Right. So, so it truly like terrified him. And it's kind of like, we've talked about it on the show, like the paralyzing, right? Like waking up and being paralyzed, not being able to move, you know, that in itself is freaky and terrifying to me. But the whole seeing an alien at the foot of your bed walking towards you, I don't know. Don't think I could handle that. I know I can't handle that.
Yeah. So that's so interesting though. So there are like, I mean, I don't know his background, but there are like sleep disorders, right, that result in these types of hallucinations. And like I've had a couple myself, and they're so freaky because like the environment is real, but you have like extra stuff in there.
Yeah.
But like, because I think your least terrifying guest ever, I think that's also what mine have tended to be. I distinctly remember one. Maybe you're going to want to cut this out later because it's the opposite.
Is it another Disney story? Because I think we're going to get sued.
No, it's not. It's not a Disney story.
Okay.
Then
continue.
But my friend, I was in college. My friend was sleeping over. I had like a little studio, so we were both in the same room. Like all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, I just like started pointing around the room, and I was like, that butterfly. And she's like, what is going on? And then I say the line that she will never let me live down. That butterfly just stole my chapstick. I distinctly remember, like, I could see this butterfly flying around, and it had in its little, in my mind, little talons, my chapstick. And it was going all around the room. Look who's smiling and nodding now, Jess.
Oh, I have things to say. I'm just letting you talk.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's freaky though, because it feels real.
Were you in your room in the dream?
I was.
That's what's so interesting to me about sleep paralysis is that you wake up, you can't move, and your room is exactly the same way it is, which makes it feel so real.
Right.
Exactly.
Because I had this happen to me. I've only had sleep paralysis like a couple times that I can remember, but I remember this one time I was put on a certain drug to help me breathe because I was exposed to black mold for over a year. It's horrible. Anyways, they put me on a certain drug to help me breathe, and this drug caused sleep paralysis. And so I woke up, it was in our townhouse in Sleepy Hollow, and this nurse in an old school outfit, like 40s nurse, like the like that little hat and like the blue cape, came in the room, and she was like, how are you feeling today? And I was like, what? Like, I was like, good. I don't even know if I like said anything. I remember being like, oh, I can breathe, so I feel good. But then I was like, I can't move. And who is this lady? Like, what is happening? And then she literally leans over me and starts to choke me.
Jeez.
And I couldn't breathe. Like choking me. And I don't remember like how I got out of it. I think like in my head, I just yelled at her, like, get out. And I remember she ran out of my room and slammed the door behind her. Like opened the door and shut it, like slammed it. And that's when I was able to like pop out of it. And I sat right up and I looked over and I was like, was the door shut when we went to sleep? I don't know. Like just, I was freaking out. But that townhouse we lived in to me was very haunted anyway. So I was like, that could have been anything. That could have been like a total dream, or it could have been me like connecting with the other side. And this just like happened to be this horrible entity that was like, or I don't know, but
Jeez.
It was terrifying. I chalk it up literally just to sleep paralysis. And it was just very, very scary because I was on that particular drug.
Yeah.
But man, I was like, it's a drug to help you breathe, and then you're dreaming about somebody choking you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awful. But yeah, so sleep paralysis, not great.
Not great. Great. Yeah, so the story I'm going to tell, just give a little insight here. I took it from the actual book, which is called the Travis Walton Experience, and I truncated it down so it's not 150,000 minutes long. But so I took some liberties, but the story itself is true to what was written there. I just shortened it a little bit. Took some of the descriptions out of it. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, so they don't like, we have these diehard fans that were like, you didn't tell the whole story. Which is,
well, I've heard this story a few times, so I'm excited to hear how you
well, you can be the person to point
it.
out it and say, you didn't tell the whole story.
and then I'm going to be looking for a new co-host again.
Yeah. That's a frequent. That's an episode. Every episode, new co-host. You got one right
Nick
here.
Does all the work.
Yeah.
Nick does all the work here. No, I'm not. I don't have one right here because she has nothing to contribute. She already told us that like 8 times. I have nothing to contribute. Nothing.
Oh, this will probably be our highest rated episode too, because of the Ashley count.
Because the Ashley, yeah.
So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's talk about the Travis Walton Experience, Fire in the Sky. So, on the morning of Wednesday, November 5th, 1975, 7 men were working in the Apache National Forest. To them, it was just an ordinary workday in the sunny fall morning. Little did they know that the darkness would bring about tremendous fear, shock, and confusion. The group was engaged in the Turkey Springs tree thinning contract, working to space and improve thick stands of smaller trees for faster growth. And as they worked, some of the men ran saws while others piled cut wood. And the crew consisted of Travis Walton, Mike Rogers, Alan Dallas, David Whitlock, Greg Hayes, and Bobby Cogdell. As the afternoon sun began to cool and the sunset coming down, the crew wrapped up their work around 6 o'clock. They loaded their tools in the back of a 65 International and headed home. The crew was not tight-knit by any means and got into squabbles about things while working throughout the day. As they drove through the dark woods, they saw a bright orangey glow. As they tried to determine what it was they were looking at, someone said it was the sunset, but was quickly corrected that they were looking east and the sun set 15 minutes before. Then it was suggested that maybe a fire or it was a plane crash. Mike, who was driving and paying more attention to the winding road, hadn't really seen it yet and asked what the heck they were looking at. He felt like it had to be a fire when he saw it, and then Bobby pointed out that it was moving. That ain't no fire. They continued on because it was the only road out of there, and they came to a clearing, and all they saw was an illuminated sky. Travis left the truck, his crew yelling at him to get back into the truck. Travis walked closer and closer. Above him was a saucer-shaped object illuminating the sky. The object had to be an overall diameter of 15 or 20 feet. The flattened disc had a shape like the 2 gigantic pie pans placed lip to lip, with a small round bowl turned upside down on the top. The soft yellow haze from the craft dimly illuminated the immediate area with an eerie glow. Under the weird light, the encircling forest took on a bizarre hues that were very different from natural colors. The trees, the bush, and the grass all reflecting subtle, peculiar shades. The entire crew was terrified. Travis walked closer. The crew began shouting to Mike to just leave him there. Suddenly a beam of light enveloped Travis, causing his body to arch back, and he appeared to be thrown by the light. The crew was powerless to do anything, and panic completely set in. They screamed at Mike that Travis was dead and to drive. Mike at first refused, but then drove off, leaving Travis alone and unconscious in the woods. Mike raced down the road faster than ever before. All were in a total panic. As he fishtailed down the dirt road, he suddenly came to the realization that he had left Travis behind. He pulled over and said they needed to go back. He told the crew to come back with him or get out of the car. They all got out of the car, and Mike went back to see if Travis was dead or alive. And when he got there, Travis was gone. He searched the whole area, but there was nothing. That was what they told the very skeptical investigators, that he wasn't in the woods, that they had taken him. Investigators grilled the crew. The town got wind of the story and began ridiculing them. A huge search party was formed, and despite all the efforts, found nothing. No Travis, and no evidence to corroborate any of the story. The authorities began to suspect foul play and murder. The reason that they found nothing was Travis was no longer there. At least that's part of his story, and here is his perspective. I awoke and I was lying on my back. I felt weak, so watery weak that I knew if I attempted to move, even an arm, I'd lapse back into unconsciousness. Bitter metallic taste covered my tongue. My mouth was dry and I was very thirsty. I was trembling and felt odd, like a strange mixture of exertion and illness. My vision slowly became clearer, the hazy scintillations of light gradually solidifying into an image. I could make out some sort of light source above me. The fixture was a luminous rectangle, and diffused light came from above. I deduced from the nearness of the ceiling that I was on a hard, flat surface like a raised table of some kind. Suddenly, the memory of what happened before came rushing back in an instant impact. I remember I had been standing outside in the clearing in the woods, looking up at a glowing saucer. Where the hell am I? Oh my God, the hospital. I was sweating, warm moisture beating my temples, work clothes on, even my boots, and the jacket was just too warm. I must have been injured so bad they couldn't take off my coat, I thought. Then I felt something pressing down lightly on my chest. It was cool and smooth. A strange device curved across my body. It was about 5 inches thick, and I could feel it extend from my armpits to a few inches above my belt. Curved down the middle of each side of my rib cage, and I could see blurry figures of the doctors leaning over me with their white masks and caps. They were wearing unusually orange-colored surgical gowns. I couldn't make out their faces. Abruptly, my vision cleared. I was definitely not in a hospital. There before me was the face of a horrible creature. It looked steadily back with its huge, luminous brown eyes, the size of quarters. I looked frantically around me. There were 3 of them. I struck out on my own, hitting one with the back of my arm, knocking into another. My swing was more of a push than a blow. I was so weakened. The one that I touched felt so soft through the cloth of the garment. The creature was light and had fallen back easily. I lunged unsteadily to my feet and staggered back against a utensil-arrayed bench. I leaned there heavily, keeping my eyes riveted on the horrible creatures. My actions had caused devices on my chest to crash to the floor. I leaned heavily on the counter. The monstrous trio of humanoids started towards me, their hands reaching out. With superhuman effort, like a cornered animal, I ground out the strength to defend myself. I sprang into a fighting stance with my legs spread, braced for an attack. I lashed out at the advancing creatures, screaming desperate, hysterical threats. The creatures slowed but continued towards me, their hands outstretched. "Keep back, damn you," I shrieked. They halted. In a snarling crouch, I held the tube threateningly back behind my head. I felt hopelessly trapped. They stood still, mutely. They were a little under 5 feet in height. They had a basic human form, 2 arms, 2 legs, with 5 digits, and a head with abnormal size. But on the outline, any similarity to humans was terrifyingly absent. They never said anything to me. I did not hear them speak to each other. Their mouths never made any kind of motion. The only sounds I heard were the movements and my own voice. Just as I built up the confidence to spring at them, they abruptly turned and scurried off the room. I collapsed back on the bench, struggling to slow my racing heart. I gulped heavy air in ragged gasps. Afraid they would return, I looked to the door. No sign of anyone. I needed something better to defend myself with. I was more afraid of being hurt by these instruments. There was a curving hallway in front of me that they had left from. I looked down, and it looked empty. There was no one in sight. I broke into a frightened run down the narrow corridor. The cramped hallway turned continuously into a tight curve. I dashed to the open doorway. I caught a glimpse of the room, but was afraid to stop. I struggled to get a grip on my self-control. What if I had missed the doorway out of there? I saw another doorway 10 feet ahead of me. I slowed down as I neared it. Maybe this is my way out. No one there. The room was totally empty except for a single chair that faced away from me. I was so afraid that there was something in that chair. So I circled, keeping my distance from the chair, checking to see if there was someone there. As I came around the curve of the wall, it was empty. I checked the door again, and then slowly went towards the chair. The closer I got, the darker the room became. Small points of light visibly came on through the walls, even the floor. It was like stars were coming through in the evening, only much faster. The matte gray of the metal was just faded. It began to be replaced by the glinting speckled deep of space. I pushed one of the green buttons. I noticed the lines on the screen had moved. I pushed another green one. The lines rapidly changed angles. I pushed some of the other buttons, but nothing happened. I put my hand on the T-grip of a lever. I rotated that handle to move forward, suddenly feeling disoriented as the stars began to move downward in front of me, in unison. Quickly, I released the lever and then stopped, and the stars stopped moving, but remained where they were where I had released the lever. I thought it was flying. I thought I could crash it or get lost or something, so I didn't want to mess with it anymore. I heard a faint sound and rolled around the door, and there, standing in the doorway, was a human being. I ran up to him, babbling all sorts of questions. The man stayed silent. I was worried about that silence. He took me firmly by the arm and hurried me down the narrow hallway, pulling me along behind him due to its narrowness. He stopped in front of a closed doorway that slid open to a small bare room. The door quickly shut behind us. We spent a few minutes in that small metal cubicle, and the doorway opened on the other side, and brilliant warm light came through that door. It was almost like daylight in color and brightness, fresh, cool air, reminding me of the springtime, making me realize how dark and stifling the place had been. I stood and inhaled deeply the clean, cool breeze. That last tinges of the ache in my head and the chest it totally disappeared. I had nearly forgotten the discomfort that had been with me constantly since I regained consciousness. We descended a steel ramp down about 8 feet to the floor. I looked around and discovered that I was not outdoors. I was in a huge room. The ceiling was sectioned into alternating rectangles of dark metal and those that gave off light. Inside the room were several crafts like the one I had seen in the woods. They did not emit light, instead had a shiny surface of brushed metal luster. It seemed to radiate a faint heat from the hulls. The craft to the left of me either sat flat on its bottom, or if it had legs, they were only a few inches high. The man escorted me across through a doorway down another corridor that had a room with a table and a chair. I immediately focused on 3 other humans. 2 men and a woman were standing around the table. The men had the same masculinity and looked as good as the first man. The woman also had a face and a figure, the epitome of her gender. They were smooth-skinned and blemishless. No moles, freckles, wrinkles, scars marked their skin. The striking good looks of the man that I first encountered became more obvious with seeing them all together. They shared a family-like resemblance, although they were not identical. Would someone please tell me where I am? What in the hell is going on? What is this place? They didn't answer me. They looked at me, though not unkindly. One man and the woman came around the table, approaching me silently. They took me by the arm and led me towards the table. I didn't know if I should cooperate with them. They didn't tell me anything, but I was in no position to argue, so I went along at first. They lifted me easily and began pushing me backwards on the table, and that is when I freaked out. I saw the woman suddenly had an object that came out of nowhere. It looked like a clear plastic oxygen mask, and she pressed the mask down over my mouth and nose. I started to reach up to pull it away, but before I could, I rapidly became weak. Everything started turning to gray. Then there was nothing at all but black oblivion. When consciousness returned to me, I awoke to find myself on a cold pavement. I saw the mirrored outline of a round silvery disc hovering 10 feet above the paved surface of the road. I could see the night sky, the surrounding trees, and the highway centerline reflecting in the curved mirror of its hull. I noticed a faint warmth radiating onto my face, and then abruptly it shot vertically into the sky, creating a strong breeze that stirred the nearby pine trees and rustled dry oaks that had laid in the road. It gave off no light, and it was almost instantly gone from sight. I ran wildly down the deserted highway across the bridge and stepping into building on Union 76 service station. No one answered my desperate knocking. No cars passed by. I ran until I reached a telephone booth at an Exxon station. I had the operator call. My brother-in-law, Grant, answered. I shouted something like, "They brought me back," and then I babbled, I'm out here at Herbert. Please come out and get me." He took the call to be a joke. "Wait, it's Travis," I screamed hysterically into the receiver. "Where are you?" he asked, still suspicious of a joke. "I'm here at the Exxon station." "Okay, stay right there and I'll come and get you. Just hang on." Later, lights suddenly shone on the phone booth. Relief flooded over me when I realized it was the headlights of a pickup. Dwayne and Grant got out of the car and saw that I was still slumped in the phone booth. Dwayne opened the glass door of the booth and helped me to my feet and into the warm truck. Grant drove us back to Snowflake. On the way, I tried to tell them about what happened, but I just couldn't get it all out. "They are awful. White skin, great big eyes." I sobbed in horror. "Those eyes, those terrible eyes. They just kept looking at me." "Just so you're okay, that's all that counts," Dwayne said. "Everyone's been worried sick about you." I said, "It's already after midnight. I must have been unconscious for a couple hours because I couldn't remember about an hour or hour and a half and then inside that thing. That's all I could have been there." Dwayne and Grant looked at me strangely, and Dwayne said gently, "You've been missing for 5 days." So
I have
that's
never
the
heard
story.
that before.
Well, there is a movie obviously made after this. It is super freaky for me. So what did you guys think of that story?
I mean, that's an intense one. How far away was he, like when he called his brother when he was found, from where he went missing?
So I'm not sure how far he was from the wooded area. It was pretty far, but he was 35 miles from where they were to pick him up. So he was sitting in that phone booth for quite a while, freaked
Okay.
out. When they found him, he was very dehydrated and not in very poor shape. So it's a crazy story. Jess, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think I mean part of it seems like the 3 aliens were able to like shapeshift and they all of a sudden looked human. They were able to
Mhm.
do that. That's kind of cool. That's always been cool to me.
Yeah.
Um but on top of that, uh it's just I don't think that they mean any harm, you know, like it was just one. And like, I don't really like stories about aliens either. They freak me out. Like what you said, like if they like, you know, if you're it, you're it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because they're so advanced. Right. But something about that story, it's like, I don't feel like they like really meant harm. And maybe they were actually like, just who the heck knows, trying to help him. Who knows? Um, you know, with that body scan thing that they were doing in the beginning.
Yeah.
At least I took it to be a body scan. If it goes from under your armpits to your waist or your hips rather. But yeah, I don't know. It's always been interesting to me, and just like that time warp too, right? Like, do they take you to a different dimension? Do they actually take you up into the sky? Like, how do you lose track of time like that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. I find it all very fascinating, but at the same time, it's just so much more to think about that my brain's like, I don't want
Yeah.
to think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story sort of resurfaced a little bit because of the government sort of announcing, you
Mhm.
know, that there is contact with aliens, and that kind of got brushed over, and you know, but Walton himself, like I think, commented a little bit more. But they were all kind of under a lot of ridicule. These are not people that were, you know, considered all like trustworthy members of society. Um, but their stories stayed pretty darn consistent throughout. They all passed lie detector tests before Walton actually came back, and they were trying to figure out what happened. All of them took lie detector tests. I think all of them passed, except for maybe one was sort of inconclusive or crazy. But
Wouldn't that be something if like somebody planned to murder their friend and they were like, we'll say it was aliens. And like that'll fly.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
instead of like hush hush, I don't know anything, they're like, it was aliens.
it's
And like
aliens, y'all.
I
So
feel like that's more unbelievable than like what they were saying.
yeah, yeah, that's probably not the first way to go, right? If you're trying to get away with
No.
murder.
Probably not. Mm-mm.
Maybe if you're going for the insane defense, that might work, you know?
But all
So,
five of you insane in the same way. Like
right,
that's a
right,
lot to prove.
true.
That's
That's why I'd never get away with murder, because I can't even think of that next step. So I got some pictures if you guys want to see them. So this is Travis Walton, a little older, but it's a picture from of him kind of currently and now, actually part of a documentary that he was in. Um, this is a picture of him, his website, which featured the book. This is the car driving through the woods, the truck driving through the woods. And this is sort of an artist's depiction from, again, his website, showing the orb in the air, the saucer. And this is from the movie, from one of the, I guess, what you could call the iconic parts of the movie, where he is walking out and he's looking at this thing, and he's kind of right above it. Everyone is like, at this point, screaming at him to get back in the truck, and for Mike to drive away without him.
those are
And,
not good friends.
right.
I hope he wasn't friends with them after that, except for Mike. Mike came back. Everybody
Yeah,
else, go to hell.
there is a scene in the movie, and there are some differences between the movie and the book, and the recollection that he had, of course, some Hollywood magic and things like that. But there is a scene where he talks about that, about leaving him, and the family was very upset, and the brother like made some threat, like, if something happened to my little brother, I'm holding you personally accountable because you left him there, you know. So but here's actually the cover scene of the movie, where he's getting hit with the light, he arched back, and then he's thrown. um and then this is the artist's conception from, again, the book and the website, of the three aliens. And if I recall it correctly, the next one is the alien from the movie. I had nightmares about this thing, because like I saw this movie and I was already freaked out about aliens, and it's probably one of the more graphic, you know, alien abduction scenes that I've ever seen.
Do
So
you think that that's the guy that put the metal in your back?
yeah, probably. He looks like he looks like he would do that, you know.
He would do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then this is the room. from his book, and the chair and the guy that kind of came in. Again, artist conception. This
He
is
looks
the
like
rant.
Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Should be saying wow. All right. So and this is the hangar that they're in as it
Okay.
came out. The crazy woman man twin.
Yes,
Clear mask.
yeah, everything a woman should be,
Right?
woman.
They look like 1980s He-Man figures, This is
I,
She-Ra and
I
He-Man.
would like to comment that the hair on the man would not be my idea of perfect.
Ideal.
Not my
I'm just
ideal.
wondering what's up with her hands. I'm
That's
confused.
that's the mask. It's hard to see. It's a little grainy with older, but
Oh,
that's
like that she was gonna put on his face.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay.
understand now. She's
Some of
holding
the
it. I was like, what is this?
Yes, she's about to like put him under, but like a lot of it, like I tried to pull out a lot of the detail about like the different suits that both of them wore, and then like the aliens as well. He was very descriptive, and kind of like the reason that I'm a little skeptical is how descriptive and how much he recalled. Like everything else, like I've
Right.
sort of read about, is like it's not detailed at all, and I think that would be the one thing about the story that I think it kept on getting more detailed as it went on, right?
That's what I was thinking. Like when you were like, and 10 feet in front of me was another
Right.
door. And I'm like, if I'm running for my life, I'm not remembering exactly how many feet in front of me a door is. I'm just
Right.
everything is like
Yeah.
terrifying, right? Like
Yeah.
I just want to get out.
The other thing I thought was weird was that, like, as you were reading it, I felt like a lot happened before he was like, and then I freaked out. Like,
Yeah.
really? You weren't freaked out the moment.
Yeah, he had some
Opened your
intense.
eyes.
Yeah, he had some intense dialogue too that he had, and but then sometimes he even, I think I included one of them in the story here where he's like, and then I was just making no sense. Like, okay, how can you pull yourself out and figure out that you were making no sense? Like you would think you're making sense at that time, I think. So I don't know. But this is when he got left. Here's the saucer and him in the road and everything.
It's funny that they left him in the road.
Yeah, well,
You
nice
got
nice aliens.
well, like if you all of a sudden you escape an alien encounter and then like you get hit by a truck because nobody's expecting a dude to be like laying in the middle of the road in the middle of nowhere.
They got hit by a
Yeah,
truck.
I mean, how many times has that happened? All of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, that guy must have been drunk, but really
Yeah.
he'd been abducted by aliens.
Now we're gonna have to reconsider everything that we thought we knew.
Everything is
Yeah.
just topsy-turvy at this point.
These are
What
not
if they
as
leave people on train tracks? Like, oh,
well, and then there's other stories that I've heard and read, and some that I thought about including in here, but I knew this was gonna be a pretty long episode. But where there's a line of people that are getting abducted from the same family line over and over again, and their descendants are getting. And if you think about it from a scientific point of view, and I think this was even mentioned on another podcast I was listening to recently, where it makes a lot of sense. If you're doing scientific experiments on people, you would want to like see what happens down the line, right? Like there's too many variables when it's like a totally different family,
a different genetic.
yeah. So
yeah, I've heard that too.
yeah.
But I mean, also, here's something. The next time you see a very attractive person with mullet hair, it could be an alien
Or it might be
because
Nick.
they can shapeshift. They can shapeshift. Yeah, or it's Nick walking around.
Nick.
Which
the
you
co-host.
could be an alien. We don't know.
Yeah. Probably.
But yeah, to Ashley's point, I mean, like that mullet guy, she's like, that's not my, but if they were like attractive people,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, are
See.
there aliens that can shapeshift into ugly people?
Probably. I mean,
like
I got the mullet part, but I don't have the attractive people part. So like that, that's where I'm not an alien.
I'm not sure. I don't know. That makes me a little uncomfortable. The idea that like an alien could just be walking around, you don't know.
Yeah.
You're just walking down the street and like you smile at someone and they smile back and they're like, I could abduct that person. So fast.
That's a different kind of terrifying, Jess. We have humans that probably
Oh
think
yeah,
that.
they
Yeah,
do
you know?
do that. Yeah. That's why I eat
So
cupcakes, so
yeah,
nobody can do that to me. That's
there there's your next poll. Would you rather be abducted by aliens or a human? I mean,
no. Oh God.
one's gonna leave you in the middle of the road, and one you don't really have any idea what they're gonna do.
That's one
So
of the most terrifying questions I've heard.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
would you rather? One of the most would you
terrifying.
rather's.
would you
Ooh,
rather, right?
yeah. I'd rather not be abducted.
Yeah,
So, mm-hmm.
at all. I'd
Not
rather
at
not.
all.
I'd rather not be considered the ugly host with a mullet, but we can't always get what we want.
Well, I don't have a mullet, so sorry.
Perfect. So anyways, I would love to hear from you, the fans. Maybe your scariest alien story. Do aliens freak you out as much as they freak me out? Or is there something else scarier? We definitely want some more interaction. Ashley's been, Ashley counts up to, I don't know, 3 million. Everybody's drunk and not listening anymore.
No, they're
Um,
done.
but I guess maybe Ashley, what is your most terrifying thing so that we can use that against you in another episode?
Oh wow, that's intense. Supernatural or just anything? Like just
I guess anything. I mean, we really could touch on anything in this podcast. We gravitate towards the paranormal and monsters and stuff.
Oh my God, I don't know. There's so much. I feel like I have so much anxiety. Like
I'm
I feel like
afraid of everything.
that's why it's a little bit, I think, like with Jess and the aliens, that like I feel like I don't need one more thing to be worried about. So I'd rather just not address any of that.
Yeah. Well, at least Jess, she didn't say she's afraid to have dinner with us ever again.
That is true. That
No,
is
I'll
true.
definitely go to dinner again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Well,
thank you, Ashley, for my new band name, Jess and the Aliens. I'm going to be utilizing that. Yeah, I thank you for this awesome episode and putting it together, Nick. This was really interesting. Maybe I'll sleep tonight. Maybe I won't. And if anybody ever gets sleep paralysis and sees like, a giant butterfly or, a nurse or an alien, let us know. Just take a second and write it in the comments because I want to know what you've seen in sleep paralysis. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, until the next terrifying tale, right?
Yeah. Stop recording, Nick.
No.